Have you ever noticed how some people can shift the entire energy of a room without saying a single word? They don't shout. They don't explain. They don't chase. They simply step back, and suddenly everything changes. The silence becomes loud. The stillness becomes powerful. People grow restless, curious, desperate. Why? Because they're no longer in control of the person they once knew how to trigger. Now imagine if you began to live like that. What if instead of responding to every question, every message, every emotional pull, you simply paused? What if instead of exploding, you chose calm retreat? You'd quickly learn something incredible. The moment you become less available, people start to question their behavior. Why isn't she replying? Why did he walk away? Why isn't he angry this time? That tension they feel, that discomfort, it's not about your absence. It's about their loss of control. Because most people, without even realizing it, are used to managing you through your reactions. They don't need to overpower you. They just rely on your predictability. Say something harsh. You respond instantly. Disagree with you. You start explaining. Dismiss your efforts. You try harder. But the day you stop reacting, the game changes. And that, right there, is where your power begins. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." Now think about this deeply. When you choose to become less available, who gets irritated? Who feels the need to provoke you just to get an emotional response? Who accuses you of changing? This isn't about you. This is about them. Because your withdrawal is a mirror. It reflects their dependence on your reactions, and it exposes the uncomfortable truth. You are being emotionally manipulated, not always intentionally, but consistently. And worse, you are cooperating with it. How? By always being there, by always saying yes, by responding instantly, by explaining yourself endlessly. You gave pieces of yourself in the name of peace, in the name of keeping people. But in doing so, you lost something more valuable, your center. And what was left? Exhaustion, frustration, a quiet emptiness that no one sees, but you feel every night. Why? Because you were too available. To those who never deserved even a minute of your silence, this isn't about being cold or cutting people off. It's about choosing yourself. It's about understanding what Carl Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating all parts of your being, of becoming someone who doesn't just react, but chooses. And it begins in silence, because silence, when it's rooted in awareness and not escape, is power. Silence shows boundaries. Silence reflects depth. Silence exposes those who only valued your availability. Think about it. Since childhood, you were conditioned to respond fast, to please, to prove, to explain. You were taught that your value lies in your accessibility. Be there, say yes, smile, agree. But now, as an adult, you're drained. You're tired of being everything for everyone, and yet you feel guilty when you don't show up. Why? Because you were programmed to believe that self-worth comes from service. But that's a lie. True worth comes from presence. And presence isn't proven by noise. It's established through energy. When you walk into a room and say nothing, but people feel something, that's presence. That's the result of reserved energy. And Jung believed that the psyche is not a bottomless source. It's an energy system. Every word, every emotion, every response consumes energy. So the question is, where is your energy going? To people who dismiss you? To arguments that go nowhere? To relationships that thrive on your exhaustion? Because if so, you're not just losing energy. You're leaking identity, and it's time to reclaim it. Start with silence. Start with not replying right away. Start with observing before reacting. Start with saying, "I'll get back to you," instead of, "I have to fix this now." Notice the shift. Notice who panics. Notice who gets upset. It's not because you've done something wrong. It's because you stopped being a tool. When people can't use your energy freely, they start accusing you. They say you've changed. They say you're distant. But here's the truth. You didn't change. You evolved. You became aware. And awareness is threatening. To anyone who relied on your ignorance, Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to be liked, to be loved, to be accepted. You wear that mask so long, you forget who you are beneath it, and becoming unavailable is the act of taking that mask off. It is reclaiming your time, your space, your silence. It is realizing that availability is not love. It is obligation. And love, real love, doesn't demand presence. It respects boundaries. So the next time you feel guilty for not replying fast, for saying no, for stepping away, remember, you are not being selfish. You are being sovereign, because a constantly available person is not respected. They are used. And when you become less available, you don't lose people. You lose roles you were never meant to play. You lose the weight of being everyone's savior. You lose the chains of forced yes, and in return, you gain yourself. You gain peace. You gain silence that heals, not punishes, and that is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll explore the cost of constant emotional availability and how being too accessible turns you into a tool rather than a person. Because when you stop showing up on demand, that's when the world starts to meet the real you. There's a silent weight we carry, the burden of always being available. We don't speak of it, but we feel it. In the way our hands instantly reach for the phone, in the way our hearts sink when a message is left unread, in the way our minds race to justify why we didn't respond fast enough. We have been trained to believe that availability equals love, that saying yes means you care, that being constantly present means you are good. But let's question this. Let's question what happens when availability becomes identity, because it's subtle. It begins in childhood. You're praised for being helpful, rewarded for being quiet, loved when you're agreeable. You become the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who never says no. And over time, being there for others becomes your default mode. You forget how to be there for yourself and the world. It adapts. It starts to expect your yes before you even offer it. It assumes you'll show up. It counts on your emotional labor, and you unknowingly become emotionally employed by others. They don't need to ask. They just expect. You feel guilty when you're not available, ashamed when you don't respond. Why? Because your identity has merged with your accessibility, and that's where the damage begins. You say yes while burning inside. You respond while emotionally drained. You smile while suppressing pain. And slowly, you disappear. Not physically, emotionally, energetically. You are present, but you're not there. And people, they don't notice because your function remains. You still show up, still support, still fix. But inside, you feel the cracks, the slow erosion of self. Carl Jung spoke about this fragmentation of self, how the persona, the mask we wear to survive socially, can become so strong that the true self is buried. And availability is one of those masks, a mask of kindness, a mask of helpfulness, a mask of love. But when love comes at the cost of your essence, it is no longer love. It's a performance, and you perform until you forget the script was never yours. Think about this. How many times have you said yes when every part of you screamed no? How many times have you offered energy you didn't have? How many times have you stayed in conversations, relationships, situations that drained you, just because you didn't want to seem unavailable? This is the cost: your peace, your power, your presence. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And when you are always available, you allow others to use you to avoid themselves. You become their distraction, their therapist, their emotional punching bag, their cheerleader, their crutch. And while they unload, you implode. While they heal, you hollow out. But no one sees it, because you smile, because you answer, because you show up. Let's break this illusion. Availability is not always love. Sometimes it's fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of disappointing. But fear-based service is not compassion. It's compliance. It's survival. And here's the truth. You were not born to be an emotional support system for everyone else. You were born to be, to live, to thrive. And you can't thrive when you're drained. You can't be whole when you're scattered. You can't grow when your roots are constantly being pulled to water everyone else. So let's talk boundaries. Not walls, boundaries. Boundaries are sacred spaces. They say, I love you, but I love me too. I want to support you, but not at the cost of my own collapse. I care, but I need care too. Boundaries are not rejection. They are redirection. They are recalibration. They remind the world you are not a machine. You are not infinite. You are not available on demand. And if that offends someone, let it. Because those who truly love you will adjust. They will adapt. They will understand. It is not your job to be constantly accessible. It is your responsibility to be consistently authentic. And sometimes, authenticity means retreat. It means silence. It means letting the phone ring. It means walking away from conversations that no longer serve your soul. Jung believed in wholeness, not perfection, not pleasing, not performance. Wholeness requires space. Space to think, to feel, to breathe, to return to yourself. And you can't return to yourself if you are always showing up for everyone else. So today, give yourself permission to pause. Let that message wait. Let that call go unanswered. Let that guilt dissolve. And listen to your body, to your breath, to the quiet part of you that has been whispering, I miss you. Because being too available isn't just exhausting, it's erasing, and you deserve to be whole again. In the next part, we'll dive into how reclaiming your energy creates presence, power, and protection, and why conscious unavailability isn't selfishness, but the start of sovereignty. Energy is not just about physical stamina. It is the essence of your presence. It is what makes people turn when you enter a room. What makes silence feel full when you choose not to speak. And most of all, it is what sustains your mental clarity, your emotional balance, your very sense of self. Carl Jung believed that the psyche works like an energy system. Every thought, every reaction, every emotion uses psychic energy. And just like any energy system, it has limits. But most people don't live with that awareness. They waste their energy reacting to what doesn't deserve attention, explaining themselves to people who don't listen, and engaging in cycles that only lead to exhaustion. And the cost is not just tiredness. It's disconnection from your core. Think about it. How often have you walked away from a conversation feeling completely drained? How often have you replayed an argument in your mind, over and over, trying to say what you should have said? How often do you feel mentally tired without doing anything physically demanding? This is energy leakage, and the more you leak energy, the less power you carry, the more reactive you become. The easier it is for people to manipulate you. Because here's the truth. The most emotionally drained people are not weak. They are simply unaware of where their energy is going. They give and give without realizing they're running on empty. They become vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, you become easy to control. This is not about being selfish. This is about being sovereign. You have the right to decide where your energy flows. You have the right to protect your focus, your calm, your peace. And that begins by understanding your triggers. Ask yourself, what makes me lose my center? What kind of situations make me react immediately? Who are the people who consistently leave me feeling drained? These are your energy leaks. These are the points where your unconscious patterns take over. And Jung was very clear. That which you resist persists. The more you fight, the more you are bound. The more you react, the more you feed the cycle. So the first step to reclaiming your energy is simple. Pause. Observe. Wait. Not everything deserves a reply. Not every question requires an answer. Not every emotion needs to be expressed immediately. When you become selective with your responses, you begin to recover energy. You regain presence. You develop something few people have: energetic mastery. Jung called this the process of integration, where all the fragmented parts of you begin to come together, where you no longer fight yourself, where your conscious and unconscious stop pulling in opposite directions. Because when you live in reaction mode, your unconscious is running the show. Your wounds speak louder than your wisdom, and that creates chaos. But when you begin to protect your energy, everything shifts. You become more calm, more grounded, more clear. Your boundaries become automatic. You stop needing to defend them with anger. You just say, no, and that's enough. Because your energy speaks for you. The people who used to push your buttons will find the buttons no longer respond. You're no longer a puppet of old patterns. You have become present. This is power. Not loud power, not forceful power, but quiet, unshakable, rooted power. And it protects you from energy vampires, from unnecessary chaos, from being used as an emotional tool. Because when your energy is intact, you don't need to over-explain. You don't need to prove your worth. You become magnetic. People feel something in your silence. They respect your space, even if they don't understand it. That is the beauty of presence. It requires no announcement. So how do you maintain this? How do you keep your energy sovereign in a world that constantly demands it? You create rituals, small habits that return you to yourself, moments of stillness, breath, reflection, solitude. You begin your mornings with intention, not with a phone screen. You end your nights in quiet, not in chaos. You check in with your body. You listen to what feels heavy. You honor what feels light. And most of all, you become okay with being misunderstood. Because when you protect your energy, you'll be called distant. You'll be seen as selfish. You will be misunderstood by those who benefited from your exhaustion. Let them. Your job is not to be understood. Your job is to be whole. Carl Jung knew this. He believed true freedom began the moment we stopped outsourcing our energy. So reclaim yours. Say no without guilt. Walk away without explanation. Rest without apology. And remember, Energy is not just fuel, it is life. Where it flows, your reality grows. And in the next part, we'll explore how projection and emotional dependency drain your energy, and how conscious unavailability disarms manipulation and breaks cycles that have kept you stuck for years.
You've spent your whole life listening to the voice of your past, the subconscious programs, the beliefs, the wounds. And in doing so, you've been living in someone else's script. But now, something is shifting. You're beginning to ask, who am I? Really? Not the person your childhood defined, not the person society wants you to be, but the person you were born to be. This is the awakening. The journey inward. To awaken your true self, you must first be willing to look inward. You must be willing to confront the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the parts of you that are scared, hurt, or misunderstood, the parts that your subconscious has buried for years. This journey is not easy, it's not quick, but it's the only way to break free from the emotional patterns that control your life. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Becoming your true self means letting go of the stories that others have written for you. It means shedding the identity you built around your wounds and your fears. And it means accepting that the real you may be far different than you ever imagined. Embracing your shadow. Your shadow is not something to be feared. It's the parts of you that you've hidden, rejected, or suppressed. But it's also the part of you that holds your potential. To awaken the true self, you must embrace your shadow. This means facing your deepest fears, your pain, your guilt, and your shame. But it's only by integrating your shadow that you can truly step into your power. Jung believed that when we try to repress our shadow, it controls us. But when we accept it, when we understand it, we become whole. We become authentic. We become powerful, breaking free from the past. As you begin to awaken, you will notice something incredible happening. The chains of your past begin to loosen. The emotional patterns that once controlled you start to fade. You stop repeating the same mistakes. You stop attracting the same pain. This is not just healing. It's transformation. But the key to this transformation is not to erase the past. It's to reclaim it, to take the lessons from your pain, your mistakes, your struggles, and use them to fuel your growth. The choice to live authentically. Living authentically means making choices based on who you are now, not who you were. It means speaking your truth, standing in your power, and taking risks that align with your true self. It means no longer seeking validation from others. It means trusting your intuition and your inner wisdom. But living authentically also means letting go of the parts of you that no longer serve you. It means saying goodbye to relationships, habits, and beliefs that are rooted in fear or insecurity. The power of self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is the foundation of true freedom. When you accept yourself, flaws and all, you stop seeking approval from others. You stop hiding your vulnerabilities. You stop being afraid of judgment. This acceptance isn't about perfection. It's about embracing your humanity, the parts that are messy, imperfect, and beautifully real. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But once you do, once you accept every part of yourself, you become invincible, you become unshakable, you become unstoppable. Freedom is within. Freedom is not found in external circumstances. It's not found in success, money, or approval. True freedom comes from within. When you awaken your true self, you begin to live from a place of peace and authenticity. You begin to make choices that reflect your values, your desires, and your purpose. And this is where the true power lies. In knowing who you are and living accordingly. The final awakening. The final step in the awakening process is realizing that you are not the story you've been told. You are not the wounds, the fears, the failures. You are not what anyone else says you are. You are not what your past says you are. You are who you choose to be. And that choice, that freedom, is in your hands. Carl Jung believed that the soul's journey is not about reaching a destination. It's about the process of becoming. Becoming who you truly are. And in that process, you awaken not just your true self, but the power that lies dormant inside you.
Wholeness is not a final destination. It is a state of being that emerges when you finally stop performing for the world and start existing for yourself. It is not found in perfection, applause, or agreement. It is born in quiet defiance, in the silent refusal to abandon yourself again. Carl Jung believed that the journey of individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires confronting your inner darkness, breaking unconscious patterns, and reclaiming the parts of yourself you once rejected. And the truth is this: you can only break free from emotional cycles when you stop participating in them. You stop arguing with people who don't want to understand. You stop overgiving to those who never reciprocate. You stop proving yourself to those who never see you. You stop explaining yourself to those who only listen to judge. Because all of this is energy loss. And more than that, it is identity loss. Every time you go back to prove, to please, to be chosen, you reinforce the belief that you're not already enough. And that keeps the emotional cycle alive. You become stuck in a loop. The same arguments, the same wounds, the same roles. And the reason it keeps repeating is because, deep down, some part of you still hopes for a different outcome. You hope this time they will understand. This time they will appreciate. This time it will feel safe. But cycles don't break through repetition. They break through disruption. You must become the interruption. The person who doesn't reply to provocation, who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't perform. Instead, you observe, you feel, you choose. This is not coldness, it is clarity. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And most of us live our lives reacting, believing that our responses are choices, but they are not. They are patterns, they are projections, they are trauma responses, the need to be liked, the fear of being alone, the guilt of saying no, the anxiety of silence. All of these keep us emotionally enslaved. So how do we break free? By becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because the moment you say no for the first time, you will feel guilty. The first time you don't reply to a message immediately, you will feel anxious. The first time you choose silence over defense, you will feel exposed. And that's okay. That discomfort is a sign that you are stepping out of the old cycle, that you are entering new territory. And in that territory, everything is unfamiliar, because you are no longer running from yourself. You are meeting yourself. In the silence, in the solitude, in the space between stimulus and response. This is where wholeness is formed. When you stop reacting and start integrating. When you stop giving energy to what's outside and start nurturing what's within. It begins to show up in small moments. You say no without needing to explain. You rest without needing to justify. You speak less, but your words carry weight. You withdraw, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You become deeply rooted in your own presence. and that makes people uncomfortable, because you are no longer predictable, no longer programmable, no longer emotionally accessible for manipulation. And in their discomfort, they will accuse you. They will say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're cold. Let them speak, because every person who falls away when you reclaim yourself was never really connected to you. They were connected to the version of you that served them. And when that version dissolves, the illusion dissolves with it. Now you are free. Not alone. Free. And there is a difference. Freedom is the ability to be fully yourself, even when others don't understand. It is the right to choose rest without guilt, to be unavailable without punishment, to be present with yourself without apology. This is not rebellion. It is return. The return to your center, to your soul, to the part of you that always knew, but was never allowed. And here's the most powerful part. Once you truly reclaim yourself, the right people begin to appear. People who don't need to be impressed, who don't feed off your emotional labor, who value your peace, who honor your boundaries. Because when you stop broadcasting pain, you start attracting presence. You begin to feel relationships based on depth, not dependency, connection, not control. But you can only receive that when you create space, when you become unavailable to noise, unavailable to guilt, unavailable to expectations. Wholeness is not a final destination. It is a state of being that emerges when you finally stop performing for the world and start existing for yourself. It is not found in perfection, applause, or agreement. It is born in quiet defiance, in the silent refusal to abandon yourself again. Carl Jung believed that the journey of individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires confronting your inner darkness, breaking unconscious patterns, and reclaiming the parts of yourself you once rejected. And the truth is this: you can only break free from emotional cycles when you stop participating in them. You stop arguing with people who don't want to understand. You stop overgiving to those who never reciprocate. You stop proving yourself to those who never see you. You stop explaining yourself to those who only listen to judge. Because all of this is energy loss. And more than that, it is identity loss. Every time you go back to prove, please, to be chosen, you reinforce the belief that you are not already enough. And that keeps the emotional cycle alive. You become stuck in a loop of the same arguments, the same wounds, and the same roles. And the reason it keeps repeating is because, deep down, some part of you still hopes for a different outcome. You hope this time they will understand. This time they will appreciate. This time it will feel safe. But cycles don't break through repetition. They break through disruption. You must become the interruption. The person who doesn't reply to provocation, who doesn't chase, who doesn't beg, who doesn't perform. Instead, you observe, you feel, you choose. This is not coldness, it is clarity. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And most of us live our lives reacting, believing that our responses are choices, but they are not. They are patterns. They are projections. They are trauma responses. The need to be liked. The fear of being alone. The guilt of saying no. The anxiety of silence. All of these keep us emotionally enslaved. So how do we break free? By becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because the moment you say no for the first time, you will feel guilty. The first time you don't reply to a message immediately, you will feel anxious. The first time you choose silence over defense, You will feel exposed, and that's okay. That discomfort is a sign that you are stepping out of the old cycle, that you are entering new territory, and in that territory, everything is unfamiliar, because you are no longer running from yourself. You are meeting yourself. In the silence, in the solitude, in the space between stimulus and response. This is where wholeness is formed, when you stop reacting and start integrating, when you stop giving energy to what's outside and start nurturing what's within. It begins to show up in small moments. You say no without needing to explain. You rest without needing to justify. You speak less, but every word carries weight. You withdraw not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You become deeply rooted in your own presence. And that makes people uncomfortable, because you are no longer predictable, no longer programmable, no longer emotionally accessible for manipulation. And in their discomfort, they will accuse you. They will say you've changed, that you're distant, that you're cold. Let them speak, because every person who falls away when you reclaim yourself was never really connected to you. They were connected to the version of you that served them. And when that version dissolves, the illusion dissolves with it. Now you are free, not alone, free. And there is a difference.